Hey, everyone. Me again, plugging the YouTube channel. We're having such a good time doing these hot takes. Scott didn't think he'd like it that much, and he's actually volunteering to do them all the time. So that's a pretty big deal. We would love it if you would subscribe and be part of our community. We read the comments. We take them to heart. Not the really mean ones, but we're trying to build something special here at Raging Moderates, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So please subscribe. And now, here's me and Scott talking about Kamala Harris's new memoir, 107 Days.
Welcome to Raging Moderates. I'm Scott Galloway.
And I'm Jessica Tarlov.
Vice President Harris is back in the spotlight, but this time it's on the page. Her new memoir, 107 Days, out this week, takes a deep dive into her 2024 presidential campaign, mixing personal reflections, political defense, and sharp critiques of her own party. From behind-the-scenes frustrations with the Biden team to awkward exchanges with Trump, Harris spared few feelings, but the book has left many Democrats shaking their heads and questioning her strategy. She sat down with Rachel Maddow on Monday for her first news interview since leaving office. Let's watch a clip.
Will you consider running in 2028?
That's not my focus right now.
I know
it's not my focus at all.
I know
it really isn't.
I'm just going to.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're not considering it now, but are you saying, when you decided you're not going to run for governor of California?
Correct.
Were you saying you are never going to run for anything ever again, or were you just saying I'm not going to run for that office right now?
That was the decision before me, and I made the decision not to run for governor of California. By the way, there are a lot of great candidates running, and
Done. Yeah.
Say more.
Just from the excerpts and the way that she's answering questions around what she's written in this book, it doesn't seem like there's a path forward for her in the Democratic Party. I mean, she's burning bridges left and right, and some of them, I think, quite unnecessarily. You know, I don't know why I understand she needs to tell her story, and that's important. And I'm happy for her and excited that she is getting out there and putting this in her own words. But when you see the reaction from top Democrats and people who are very much part of the future of the party, like a Josh Shapiro, where they're frankly just pissed about the way that she's spoken about them. And I'm not saying you should censor yourself necessarily, but it didn't feel like somebody who thought that she was going to be standing up on a primary stage with these people come 2028. This felt like somebody who really wanted to tell their story and then was going to figure out what the next chapter looked like for her, maybe a different kind of public service, maybe a different way to help us protect democracy, but not necessarily as a candidate. Because, you know, talking about how Josh Shapiro was just obsessed with himself and more concerned with what art was going to be on the walls. You know, the comment, what she wrote about not selecting Pete Buttigieg, who she wanted to be her VP because she was worried that the country wouldn't accept a black woman with a Jewish husband and a gay vice president, which it seemed from Pete's response actually hurt his feelings. On top of not giving Americans enough faith in the system. It's kind of rattled everyone. And, you know, Maddow asked her about it. And, you know, as someone who's openly gay, you could see that it kind of roiled Maddow as well. She was a bit like WTF about this. And there are certainly things that I worry that the American public would not be accepting of. I'm concerned about Josh Shapiro running as a proud Jew at a time when, I mean, hopefully this conflict will be over by that time. But, you know, someone who keeps Shabbat, I don't know if the country is ready for that. But the way that all of this has been articulated, I think, doesn't reflect that well on her. And you're seeing that in the reaction to it. So I think a lot of people will buy the book, but I think that it's upsetting a lot of people as well. What do you make of it?
Well, first off, I think she's hoping, as many politicians do, that she's drafted and they say, we were wrong, you were right, and we need you to run in 2028. Because the easiest thing, if she wasn't interested in running, the easiest thing she could have said was, no, I'm not going to run again. I gave it my shot. It was a wonderful experience. I'm going to move on to different things. Instead, she's like, well, that decision's not before me. Well, yeah, if you weren't planning on it, you could just say, no, I'm not going to run. So the book itself, I mean, the two things that came out was that she said, all right, you know, Biden should have dropped out earlier.
Yeah, it was reckless.
Yeah, well, thanks, Captain Fucking Obvious. And she said that she couldn't say anything because it would come across as self-promoting. There are things she could have done. And the entire administration and the people around him, and also a lot of just Democrats, including many of my friends, just decided to put on blinders and say, okay, Pop is, remember when all this bullshit with like, oh my God, I can barely keep up with him. He's sharp, he's on point, he's alert. And it's like, and Jon Stewart had the right response. He was like, well, how come we never see that Biden on video? He had no business being in the White House. None. No business running again. None. That was insane. I mean, these people, in most households, these people have their driver's licenses taken away from them. So the notion that she did not demonstrate the leadership you would want to see from a future president to figure out a way to get this guy to move aside and have an open primary where other people would get to enter into the Thunderdome of the Democratic primary. So I don't think people really want to hear that from her now. It's like when Republicans all become reasonable and grow testicles after they've left office. You know, it's like, well, the fact that you thought what Trump did was wrong does us no fucking good now. When you had a chance to say that when it mattered, you didn't say it. So a lot of the things that she views now, the thing about Mayor Pete, and I've gotten some shit for this, but I actually think Mayor Pete would do better in a general election than the actual primary election. I think his story about the importance that family plays in his life, and that as a younger man, he wasn't sure he'd ever get to recognize the joy that both you and I have registered and have his own family. I think that is really powerful. It's very authentic, and I think it appeals to a lot of moderates and a lot of Republicans. The things you don't like to say, because our comments will get filled up, is that to get through the primary, you need the Black community. The Black community...
Yeah, he still has like 0% support.
I mean, either... well, I don't know, what's the point of having money and people love you unconditionally? The Black community, as of 2020, does not seem comfortable with a gay man. And he got 3% of the vote in South Carolina. And he was, recognizing the political calculus, he offered reparations. No one else was offering that. So maybe things have changed, but I actually think Mayor Pete would do pretty well on a national stage. He just has to get through the Democratic primary, where the Black caucus carries a lot of weight. And essentially he was winning until they got to South Carolina, and then it was over. And her saying that, it's like, well, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to do what you think is right. And I get you have to have the political calculus. I don't think the book's going to sell that well.
Oh.
I find that Vice President Harris brightens up a room by leaving it. And I just don't think she's that compelling a figure. I will give her this. I think her debate performance, I remember watching her walking in with her husband into that debate, thinking, I can't even imagine the amount of pressure on this woman's shoulders. And I thought she gave one of the most dignified, outstanding performances in the history of performances. To take that kind of pressure, to prepare the way she prepared, to be as composed as she was. You know, she was dealt a bad hand. She had to run in a U.S. election with British-style calendar for her. You know, she was just dealt a shitty hand. But I don't think the statements she's made in the book, I'm parroting your points, I don't think it's going to do her any favors. I hope she got paid a lot of money. I would like to see her make a lot of money. She's been a public servant. She served honorably. I think she is literally the first pick for the Supreme Court in the next Democratic administration. And I think she would be an excellent justice. But I think her brand has taken a hit here. I don't think it's been good for her.
Yeah, I would just say, to echo your sentiments about leadership, which is what everyone is desperate for at this moment, to, see someone who's doing the right thing and kind of showing you a way, right? Like Gavin Newsom is doing that at this moment. J.B. Pritzker is doing that at this moment. Tattling on people afterwards when you were in the room and might have had the opportunity. She says that she thought that Biden's response to Gaza was, quote unquote, inadequate. Now, I'm not saying you need to torch your boss, but once you are running that campaign, there could have been more differentiation. On the debate point, I thought she did amazingly well. And even Donald Trump thought she did amazingly well in that debate. It's in the book that Biden called her before that and was yelling at her about how she was apparently shit-talking him. His brother had told him that. Like, that just adds to the chaos of all of this and the amount of pressure that's on your shoulders going into it. But like that kind of framing, I think, is where you want to be, more than people saying, why didn't you lead on so many of these issues while you were vice president or as a candidate? Because, I understand Trump got this mandate and that the arrows were all going in the red direction versus the blue direction. And people in these blue cities were saying, we're going to take a flyer on this guy. So in that way, it was an accomplishment in winning the popular vote in the 7 swing states. But the margin was actually quite tight, historically speaking. This was a winnable race. I continue to believe that in my soul. And reading some of these things that she was thinking but didn't say, and, returning to The View today where she had her biggest blunder, right, when they asked her,
100%.
what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And she had no answer and figured out it in a commercial break, but was actually there to pitch a new policy. And you couldn't even come up with, oh, no, the difference is I'm going to help out the sandwich generation by making sure that parental care is covered under Medicaid, makes you think that you're telling on yourself a little bit about how you would be able to do this job. And I got to say, the Pete thing, I agree with you, I think, about the general. But she says in it that she was worried about picking Mark Kelly because of attacks on his service, or potential attacks on his service, but that she picked Tim Walz, who ended up having his service attacked the entire time. Like, I spent every day having to talk about his service and his discharge and, why he honeymooned in China and tampon Tim and whatever other stupidity was being hurled at me. And I'm thinking, like, Mark Kelly, the guy who served honorably, the astronaut, and the guy who's married to Gabby Giffords, who's one of the most incredible spokespeople for public service, for government, and for sensible gun reform. Like, we could have had Gabby Giffords up there with Mark Kelly. Sign me up for that.
I've said it before and I'll say it again, and this isn't the way the world should be. It's the way the world is. I don't think the Democrats are going to take any chances, and I think they have acknowledged something terrible about America, or something we still have a lot of work to do. We are highly lookist and still misogynist. The Democratic nominee is going to be someone over 6'1" who is a white heterosexual male. Full stop. The powers that be are just going to be, and if you don't believe we're a misogynist nation, still deeply misogynist, Secretary Clinton, Vice President Harris. Donald Trump is not capable of decorating their tacky country club, and they both lost. All right, Jess, let's leave it there. On that optimistic note, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Please hit subscribe. We'll be back for more hot takes.